Hi, everybody. As you can tell, I am not Drew, but I'm here to introduce him. We have a little bit of a charming, what I think to be a charming tradition of hyping each other up when we're about to do something really scary, like talk to a huge group of people. Um, I last night I was talking to Drew about the first time we met, and it started in an argument. I naively thought when I came here I was gonna blow in, learn some stuff, blow out of here. I don't know. I didn't think I was gonna make as close friends with these people as I did end up making. And Drew's insistence on engaging and making me participate in a conversation with him scared me. That that intimacy, that way that he draws people in, made me feel a little intimidated. But ultimately, I think that we would all say that we have benefited from knowing Drew. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce him as he comes up to speak to you.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks, Pat Minnie, for that wonderful intro. As a lifelong fan of hip hop, I've always wanted a hype man, and it's even better to have a hype woman to bring me up. Before I really get started, I want to thank my mother, Denise Costley, who's watching at home. I want to thank my father, Louis Costley, my aunt, Sandra Green, and my uncles, Melvin Costley and David Green, for making it out from Virginia and Maryland for this occasion. Louis, Melvin, and Sandra are the first three born to my grandmother, Phyllis Costley, who, before she died in 2013, helped desegregate public schools in Arlington County, Virginia, where I'm from, and was a substitute teacher there for decades. It's not lost on me how special it must be for you all to witness these type of accomplishments. I also want to thank Dean Ed Wasserman, who was one of the first two people I met in the Berkeley J School community at the 2016 NABJ NAHJ convention in Washington, D.C. The other person I met there was Pamela Gleason, who made sure Dean Ed saw my resume and clips. Thank you, Pam. That led to me getting the Jonathan Rogers Fellowship, which allowed me to visit this beautiful, majestic campus in this intimate, creaky Craftsman building on the edge of it. But I likely wouldn't have been at that convention if it wasn't for my loving partner, Alana Black, who asked me not long into our relationship if I was a part of NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists. I said no. In my early 20s, I thought it was that fighting the man included not joining professional associations. This is a notion that she quickly informed me was stupid to carry into my 30s. After imparting that wisdom, she not only encouraged me to join NABJ, but bought me a year-long membership to the organization as a gift for our first Christmas together. After that, it was a no-brainer that I'd attend the conference that year in DC, and the rest is history. So thank you, Alana, and thank you to Ruth and Van, who are her parents, for bringing her into this world. People like Alana have been on the front lines of our successes, failures, doubts, and assurances these past 2 years. There's Alicia. There's Tiger. There's Hubert. There's Brian. There's Danny. Some of us, like Todd Chin, are lucky enough to have our partners at the school with us every day. Mei Ying, wherever you are, I can't see you. Todd wanted me to tell you he got a bit emotional at the end of our showcase yesterday and wants to say sorry for not shouting you out during the show. He's experienced so many ups and downs, mostly downs in the last few years, and wants to thank you for always being there for him and supporting him. I'd also like to thank Carrie Lozano and Geeta Anand, our lecturer and faculty commencement speakers. And they're two of the people helping us fortify the fundamentals of reporting and push the boundaries on how to craft engaging narratives using modern tools. As a result, many of us have produced work while in school that's at the cutting edge of digital journalism. If I were Joanne Straley, the school's director of student services, I would call them J Innovations. Joanne, Michelle, and the rest of the school's student services staff have started the trend of appending the letter J to things when they want to claim them in the name of the J school. There's J registration, when we register for class. Everyone else on campus just calls it registration. There's J meet, a meeting we have as a cohort or as the whole school community. There are J spouses. That's the equivalent of a work wife, but for J school. And there's J ticks. The tickets many of you all have been using the past 2 days to get into J Showcase events. Speaking of Showcase, one of my favorite things about this experience the past 2 years has been having a front row seat to the awesome creativity many of my classmates in the class of 2019, the cohort before us in the class of 2018, and the one after us in the class of 2020 have been displaying. From our class alone, there was Sam Goldman's beautiful, important, and comprehensive personal essay on UCSB and Elliot Rodgers. There was Karen Creighton's relentless reporting on homelessness in the East Bay. And there was the news presentation I still talk about to this day and will likely talk about until the end of time. Newsin' and Cruisin', produced by Bo Kovitz and Abene Clayton. That's all before we started our thesis projects. So being at Showcase and seeing the projects that represent a culmination of our experiences at the J School and this point in our lives has truly been a treat. To name a few of the themes we touched on the past 3 days, we've shared with you stories of sex positivity, the experiences of queer folks, mass incarceration, police brutality, immigration, post-colonialism, and labor injustice. This reflects what we care about as a group of journalists: equity, inclusion, social and economic justice, expanding and detailing our collective view of humanity, the good, the bad, and everything in between. I often say that what I do as a journalist follows photography advice often attributed to legendary photographer Ansel Adams: expose for the shadows. And I think that's what we should do as journalists. Find out what's going on in the world that others might not know about, investigate it, and reflect what we've learned to those who don't know. There's also a popular saying with those who've worked at my hometown newspaper, the Washington Post: journalists are tasked with writing the first draft of history. This is true. We are tasked with being on the front line of preserving our collective experience for generations to come. And we call it journalism, but that's just one way of describing storytelling, which is an activity that many of our ancestors have been doing long before the newspaper, television, and internet were even thought up. We are tasked with exposing for the shadows, with writing the first draft of history, with telling stories that expose, preserve, and pass on our shared experience at a vital time. Many of us are clamoring for a better world, to see the struggles of our forebears come to fruition, and there are others holding us back from creating that world. Our predecessors and the institutions they joined are in peril. Local newsrooms are closing every year. There's a disconnect between many of the people gathering information and those who may need it the most, and powers that are counting on the obfuscation of truth, or even the ignorance to it once it's been brought to light. But the journalism industry is changing, not dying, as my longtime mentor, Yannick Rice-Lamb of Howard University, once told me. We have the power to shape that change. That power lies in us individually, but is amplified when we come together. When we choose collaboration over competition, when we choose solidarity over selfishness. Once we all leave here, we know that this work, this fight to make a better world using truth, honesty, and creativity must continue. We must unionize journalism. We must democratize journalism, and we must decolonize journalism. We were getting practice doing all those things while we were here at the J School, and we're encouraged to do so by many of the people in our community who will be here day to day once we leave. There's Andres Cedil, the professor of visual journalism, who encourages us to look to the next tallest peak and to go climb it in our work. That's not coming from a purely competitive place either. At the Logan Symposium in 2018, I heard him tell a crowd full of investigative journalists to go do stories on the beat he had been covering for years with his colleague, Daffodil Altan. That's because he's more concerned with the story being told, the injustice being amplified, and change happening because the noise is so loud than he is about getting a scoop. There's Daffodil Altan, who I just mentioned, When I met Daffodil, she was teaching a class about implicit bias and reporting and made me realize some of the higher level thinking going on in classes at this school. Since then, she's been a fierce advocate for herself and women students and students of color at the school, and along with Andres, has done some of the most important work at the school in years. And there's Cara Platoni. Where are you, KP? You over there? What's up, KP? It's like she's like my big sister. And there's Cara Platoni, the assistant dean of students, who is constantly making space for ourselves and our stories to be told at this school.
We love you, KP.
That's right. There are people who have never taken a class with KP, as she's affectionately known, who were never under her charge as an instructor, but who have gotten deep, thorough feedback on their stories, helpful life advice, or both from her. It's professors like this that make the J School a J community. And then there are awesome people on our staff like Charlotte Horace, ever reminding us to read Marx and fight the power. Or Chuck Harris, who redesigned the 2 hyperlocal news websites this year, but is also always down to talk about the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, Chuck.
And for me, most of all, my schoolmates who have become family with me in the past 2 years have made this place a community. There's Brandon Yadagari, who made me seem way cooler to my family than I actually am when they showed up to Showcase yesterday. And Amy Mustafa, whose beautiful narration some of you heard on me and Carlos's video on statelessness. Thank you, Amy. Amy and Brandon, both from the class of 2020, you have helped me keep me sane this year, and I appreciate you for it. The school is in good hands with students like you two sticking around. As for the class of 2019, there's Lucas Gilkey, who served as an accomplice to me in class and race warfare. There's Luis Hernandez, who helped us all prioritize self-care. There's Jobil Munoz and Alex Nieves, who have somehow simultaneously been like little brothers and uncles or grandfathers to me. And Susie Nielsen and Selena Nasir, who are always ready to joke and bring cheer to the rest of us, just like I am. Everyone here, though, all of y'all, every single one of you, has something good to offer the world, and I hope you choose to share it, because it's likely that someone in the world needs you to. Thank you.